Having a $236 billion TAM is exciting. What we're focused on building, though, is the next definition of what great looks like.
Today, we're joined by Jason Eubanks and Srinivas Bandi, co-founders of Aurasell. Jason has over 20 years of experience building and scaling go-to-market teams with leadership roles at Twilio, Harness, and Cisco Meraki. At Harness, he grew revenue from $1 million to $100 million in 5 years. Srinivas has spent his career transforming complex technology platforms with roles at VMware, Nutanix, and as SVP of Product and Engineering at Harness, where he built multiple products that reached PMF. At Aurasell, they've built an AI-driven go-to-market platform that integrates multiple sales tools and uses AI agents to handle everything from territory planning to forecasting. In this episode, Jason and Srinivas share their story behind founding Aurasell, from scaling Harness together to raising $25 million in 11 hours, and unpack how they're using AI-native first principles approach to disrupt legacy sales tools, transform go-to-market execution, and redefine what a modern revenue platform should be. How do you juggle what you're building and the excitement of what you're building with making sure that you maintain that #1 spot?
We obsess over our customers, not over our competition. We can obsess over being on top of technology, but we're not really too worried about our competition. We are maniacally focused on our users and what their problems are and what are the tools we can leverage and the tools we can provide to them to solve their problems.
Jason, Srinivas, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Inside Silicon Mind. I wanted to start off with quite a bold statement. There's a number of highly successful multi-billion-dollar companies here in Silicon Valley right now that are effectively features of your product. You're effectively displacing a number of companies very, very quickly. Now, we won't name any in particular, but you were able to do quite a lot in the space of 13 months. You've recently come out of stealth. I guess the big question is the speed at building companies today, especially in the world of AI, is definitely a big requirement. But how has that been for you at Aurasell?
Yeah, I mean, the world has dramatically changed in the last decade in multiple phases. First, there was the cloud revolution and the services that you could use from the cloud vendors and the open source projects that came in. That, in my opinion, it provided the first boost in terms of the speed you could use in order to build new products. But then that was eclipsed by AI, which provided a 100x boost on top of it, which is if you know how to build the right building blocks, if you know how to put that together, filling in the blanks has become incredibly easy with AI. So if you have the right people who know how to build the right architecture, and then they know how to leverage the right AI tools, you can really put things together very, very quickly. So in summary, I actually say that last decade's platform is this decade's product, and last decade's product is this decade's feature. So if you're aiming for last decade's product, that's bad news for you, because everybody needs to be building a lot more, and this is the power AI has given us in order to change the world quicker and faster and for the better.
But I'll also add to your question in the response to this, we're disrupting 15 of the world's largest software vendors that have been built over the last 1 to 2 decades. Some of them even longer. And on the outset, that might seem like a daunting task. But you asked how it's been for us. We didn't set out with the goal of going out and disrupting 15 old companies. We set out with the goal of leveraging AI as a disruptive platform shift that unlocks a tremendous value opportunity for the personas that we have built our product to serve. So we took a first principles thought approach. Quite literally, our process was starting with the personas. There's 5 of them, by the way, in the first product that we shipped, and SDRs, sellers, first line leaders, execs, and operations. And we documented the workloads of each of those personas, the activities that go into the work that they do. Yep. And then we, from there, mapped out, what are the workflows behind executing those activities? Where could we use an AI native approach to automate insights, and then from there, take a look at what that human does. What does that persona do with that insight? What actions do they take? The next 3 actions they take, and then we went after automating that intelligently. So surface the insights in context of the persona and the activities and work being done in the customer journey, and then automate it so the human doesn't have to, at least for the next 2 to 3 actions. From there, after we started going down the journey of building that AI native intelligent automated platform, it wasn't until we started and mapped all that out that we realized that we would end up encroaching on and displacing 15 existing legacy players. So by taking that first principle approach, it was very obvious to us that the only way to build it, the right way to build it in an AI era of intelligence with a native AI architecture, was not to come in as a wedge sprinkled on top of a 25-year-old legacy framework, but instead, you have to have your own data store. You have to have, on top of that clean data, all of the metadata for context awareness. You have to be able to execute agentic workflows to infuse signals and contextual awareness so that you're driving relevant insight at the right times and can drive automated actions that are high quality. So if that's the objective you're building as an outcome, there's too many pitfalls associated with trying to apply AI to a 20-year-old legacy framework with 15 plus players in it who bring duplicate data stores, duplicate and overlapping workflows, metadata trapped in data silos, users traversing a dozen interfaces. None of this is the right way to do it in today's age, in an AI native era. So the decision to build it this way was just obvious. The innovation velocity that we were able to unlock around it, in part, candidly, is because of a modern AI native architecture. We're not only building an AI native platform, we're doing it with other AI native tools for our engineers.
Yeah. A fascinating insight into how we built this, especially using the first principles approach that Jason was talking about, was, in fact, in the first 4 months, we almost had nothing to show because we were so busy putting together the building blocks that would give us the velocity to build what people perceive as 15 different products. And as we put those building blocks, it was the data layers, the lakehouse, the orchestrator, workflow orchestrators, the agent builder. All of this had to come together. And then we also had to provide a very performant graphical user interface. So how do you put this native architecture but provide things that are extremely performant when a user is interacting with our product? We put all that framework together, and then we started building the functionality that you see in the product. It's in fact become so easy to build agents in our platform. It takes our product managers a couple of minutes to actually build a new agent.
Wow, that's profound. I think there's quite a lot to unpack. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, but we talk about legacy companies without naming any particular company. Some of these companies you're displacing aren't legacy. They were, quite frankly, multi-billion-dollar companies during the pandemic, potentially even companies that were prone to be a public company, decided not to. And today you have an entire product, which is effectively, as you said, a feature. So I wouldn't, it's hard for me to kind of understand the perspective here of when obviously I understand what you're building, but it is crazy, right? You are effectively replacing and displacing a number of companies. The speed at building these things, right? Effectively, it is an end-to-end agentic platform for sales, GTM. But just for the audience and the viewers, let's unpack it. What is Aurasell solving? What is the biggest problem statement that you are going after?
I think it's twofold. Primarily, we're injecting an AI native intelligent automation for go-to-market personas. So we're allowing sellers to get out of the manual processes and and tool sprawl that they've been locked up in for decades now, and freeing them up to go do what people hired them to do, which was sell to other humans. I mean, the average B2B seller today is only spending 30% of their time selling. That 70% is wrapped up in manual activities, manual research, very cumbersome outbound pipeline gen, updating all the systems. If in the average sellers will interact with 10 to 12 systems every single day. They might be different 12 tools on a Tuesday, at a pipeline Tuesday versus a forecast Friday, but every single day. And that's actually cited from a Salesforce report, that every single day sellers on average and B2B sellers will spend time in and out of 10 to 12 tools. That tool sprawl comes with a productivity drag. There's context switching impact. There is data that these teams are moving in and out manually, extracting, putting in spreadsheets, pulling back into other things, manually taking action, using it on themselves. So all this stuff just kind of, you end up with a really expensive sales team that you're only getting 30% of the actual primary action that you hired them to do out of that team. And so one of there's a few core value propositions that we deliver. The first is we take that 30% and we flip it on its head. Because we have such contextually aware, intelligent automation, our customers and our users are immediately getting 2.5x of sales execution throughput because we're automating. The other thing that we're doing is increasing productivity by elevating the consistency of execution, right? So another thing that we found interesting is researching the problem here is that, in 2024, as an example, 91% of sales orgs in the world missed their goals. And of the revenue that was created, 25%, the top 25% of sellers account for 80% of the revenue. So you're spending money on 75% of the sales team that's not really productive. Some of the reason they're not productive is because of the things we talked about. It's the manual, mundane activities pulling them down. It's the tool sprawl and the contextual context switching productivity hit. A lot of it, though, comes down to consistency, or in this case, lack of consistency of execution of excellence. What do I mean by that? I mean, look, your top 25% of sellers account for 80% of your revenue. When they do, they're over 7 times more productive. So how do you through automation, invert the time that you give people? That's a 2.5x uplift. But in that velocity you're giving them, you give them better execution. So let's take the remaining 75% of those sellers and take at least half of them and give them the automated coaching and best practices guardrails in context of the customer journey and the sales execution that they're in the middle of at the time that it matters most. Not, let's give them that best practices guardrails in an automated way in the moment of sales process execution so that they're not waiting till the end of a quarter for an enablement session, right? In that way, what we've done is we've built the best practices, sales frameworks, methodologies into the product, and then trained opportunity coaching logic like your best first line manager, and everything that's being automated, taking the work off the reps. Now, as you're automating that execution, you're also guiding them and up-leveling that execution. That's easy to do if you have 5 sellers, because a manager can micromanage 5 sellers to execute the way that they've designed it. When you go from 5 to 50 to 100 to 500, one of the things you spend in my past, I was an operator for 20 years, leading go-to-market teams. One of the things we always struggled with was how do we optimize productivity per head? It's impossible to optimize productivity per head if you don't have consistency in execution. You'll always have variation that lead to inefficiencies. So by using intelligence and constantly having pattern recognition and constantly learning, and then automating that coaching like your best first line manager on the shoulder of every rep, you up-level the consistency and execution. That makes the other 75% look more like the top 25% and unlocks another lever of productivity. And then finally, if you think about the way that go-to-market tool stacks are built today, they're sitting on top of 20 plus year old legacy CRMs. And the innovation in the CRMs just hasn't kept up. It's been a desert of innovation. So you ended up with these sort of point solutions and SaaS products popping up around them. So you buy a Salesforce or a HubSpot or something, and you want to augment that forecasting capability. You go out, you buy a forecasting product. Fine. You slap it on. That doesn't seem like a big deal. Now you want to do some automated account research. Maybe even you get one of these more recent products. Let's say agentic in nature. You pile that on top of your CRM, and it's doing some LLM queries for you. Great. And you go off and you keep doing this for every step of the sales process. The next thing you know, if you were like me in the org that I built at Harness, you kind of wake up one day and you realize you have 22 products supporting a go-to-market function that's, $100 million in revenue and spending $3 million in SaaS fees. It's ludicrous. And it's also not a great experience for your sellers, for your users, right? So the other thing that we do is we immediately give our clients the opportunity to save 50% on SaaS fees. And we just unlock an emotional benefit for all those users because everything that's being automated intelligently for them is a pleasant experience. It's a modern UI, and they don't have to traverse 12 products to go do their job, right? So I think there's all kinds of additional benefits here that we can talk about, but like those are the top core value unlocks that we provide for our customers.
And an important thing to also understand here is that even the post in AI generation, post 2022 products we are talking about, most of the products don't actually understand the user personas that Jason was talking about earlier, which is it's extremely important to understand what a particular persona is, how they're using the product, what they need at exactly the right time, and when do they need it. Okay, and this is what we have done in the product. Yeah. We don't expect our users to come and ask, hey, give me notes for next meeting, or summarize this meeting for me, or summarize this opportunity for me. They don't do any of that in our product. In our product, we provide them before they know they need it, and in exactly the context they need it. And that sort of requires deep understanding of not only the space, but working with CROs, sales leaders, account executives, SEs, BDRs, SDRs, you name it. We work with every single persona. We've deeply understood their problems, and that's what we built the product, keeping that in mind.
And I'll let you go on your next question after this one.
No, go ahead.
But this is like we're passionate about this. Yeah. We've thought deeply about this for a long time, and I think the industry's expectation of what it means to apply AI to go to market is too low. I mean, we have self-driving vehicles. We're like looking at putting people on Mars. We can go on and on with these. You're putting chips in people's brains. Like, why should we think that go to market? That it's enough to simply take a little bit of waterfall orchestration into an LLM prompt and and throw it into a spreadsheet and back into Salesforce. So why is that good enough? That's crazy. We should expect more. And you think about it, people sometimes they come to a demo and they say, "Well, where's the chat bot? Where's the chat box?" I mean, chat accessing LLM compute or LLM intelligence is like using a terminal to access compute capacity. No one does that anymore, right? What we're building is a contextually aware, automated operating system for go-to-market sitting on top of clean data with contextual awareness, AI logic built in that accounts for the persona and the workload of those personas, so you don't have to sit around and have dev days like hacking away trying to build prompt engineering templates to go get a little bit of AI to sprinkle out of it. This thing is AI everywhere natively in the product. And you should expect that, I think, as go-to-market leaders and salespeople in your audience. It's not enough to just have something that automates a little bit of chat interaction. You should expect a contextually aware go-to-market operating system that is AI native from the very beginning and all the way through its stack to serve you. You know, what does that mean? Well, it means that product, if it's truly AI native, it can't be 20 years old because AI didn't exist. It has to have a born on date after 2022. It has to have a complete platform set of capabilities that leverages a single data model, a single AI logic layer, and automates everything around it. That absolutely has to be the minimum table stakes for what it means to have an AI native platform serving go-to-market, in our opinion.
There's one thing you said earlier on. You said that you can put together an agentic solution within a few minutes. You can build an agent really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of timelines are we looking at?
Well, you can, in our platform, you can build an agent in minutes. And the way you can think of an agent is you need certain context for it to operate on. What data do you want to operate on? And what do you want the agent to keep doing without you intervening? And just do it completely autonomously. So in our platform, you can just pick the data you want to work on. You describe what you want to do with the data, and you then describe what is the result you want from that entire operation. And once you put it in place, it just autonomously takes care of the whole thing. And this, again, from a first principles, thought process, we put these building blocks together so that not only do our engineers and our product managers can build quickly, but even our customers who have specific use cases which we may not have addressed directly, they can come in and extend our platform to build those capabilities.
Yeah. I think the reason I ask that question is because if I think about my role as a recruiter, effectively with salespeople, and to your point, Jason, I think the large majority of our time is spent doing tasks that today would be good to not do them anymore, because 30% of our time, as you said, I can't quantify, but you obviously have, is the real quality work, building those relationships, understanding the need, being able to convince the customer to buy, meeting their need. And there are some great books on this, Spin Selling, the Challenger Sales Model, where years and years of data and research has been gathered to understand and decipher exactly what does it take for the top 20% to perform at the level they're performing. In today's world, technology helps, but there is also something else that you picked up, you mentioned earlier on, the coaching piece. Because there is a grit, there's a mindset, there's an element of, and you come from a sales background, and I want to touch on both your backgrounds, how you both met, but also your stories at Harness, because I think effectively part of building a great company, especially in today's world, because a lot of people are getting term sheets these days, you come with a lot of experience on the sales side, the problem you're solving, and on the technical side. But just going back to the coaching piece. So as a salesperson, one of the biggest challenges I faced, I've been doing recruitment almost 2 decades now. So I've worked with many salespeople, some good, some great, some average. The one thing I've struggled with is I can teach them how to do recruitment. I can teach them how to sell. I can teach them how to speak to a customer. I can maybe have them go and study the market. But that's a skill piece, the will, that ability to just really want to go out there and perform at a top level. You mentioned coaching. How does the platform play in being able to ensure the performance of salespeople? I think you said earlier on a manager could do that maybe with 5 people, but it gets a little bit difficult once the team scales.
Sure. Yeah. So to be clear, we can't automate someone's will. You hire for that. And I think you can't. We always used to say, I can't want it more than you. Of course. Because as a manager coaching a rep or something, I think that applies. You're always going to have to hire high intellect, high character, like motivated, driven people. But the rest of it, we can automate around them.
The reason I asked that question, I know the platform isn't designed to find you the perfect salesperson, but I'll give you an example. I sometimes I'm in the office and I just listen to one of my salespeople have a really good call, and I'll just go up to them and I'll just sit down and say, "You're performing really good right now. That call you just had is incredible. What are you doing differently?"
Yeah.
Right. But that's just a one-to-one conversation. And I want to touch on the cultural piece around remote working, which I'm completely against. But having that in-person conversation is what a manager and a salesperson. Is there a way for the platform to, in many ways, trigger or at least guide a salesperson to make the right decisions?
Absolutely. Oh, first of all, there's making the right decisions, there's running the right execution plays, and then there's just simply removing the noise and the less, I won't even say unqualified, but the like less fruitful opportunity for them to spend time in places they shouldn't. Right. Okay, so we attack this from multiple fronts. One of the ways we attack it is instead of taking a traditional approach to setting up a CRM where you have to connect a data provider and fill it with the accounts that you want. You have to handpick those, go get them, synchronize them, sort them out, do some research manually, sort them out by segment. Our product, when you come into it, before you even log in for the first time, we have 10,000 agents that kick off in the background. And when we get a customer, we'll stand up a tenant. Our agents will go discover everything we can about that tenant. We automate building the ICP profile for that customer based on what we've learned around what products they sell, who do they sell them to, case studies of value unlock, who do they compete with. So we'll automate building that ICP, automate building user champion exec profiles for them. And then we automate from that the process of selecting the accounts from within our 85 million accounts globally that are the highest ICP match that they should focus on. And then we go out within those accounts and pre-populate the contacts that have the highest profile match for user, EB, and champion fit. In this way, from day one, you remove, and by the way, from there, we automate the account and contact intelligence. And we automate pulling in real-time signals from what we see these contacts, these people doing out in the wild, right? And this way, when your rep logs in for the first time, they have a curated approach to how they run their territory, focusing on the highest probable return on accounts, sorted in descending order for them, pre-matched into territory segments, and contacts that are the most likely to engage based on profile fit and body of activity that we see signals on, and we give a potential engagement score. So the first thing you do is just direct them out of the noise and into the place where they're going to optimize their time and get the highest return. Then it gets into coaching the execution. And we look at coaching in two buckets: skills coaching and deals coaching. So on the deals coaching front, a rep goes out and they get into an opportunity and they're executing their body of work in their sales process, right? And we've taken value-based selling frameworks and built in those selling frameworks into the product. Our customers can turn them on. When they turn them on, that's applied through your sales stages. And of course, we automate all the CRM updates and all the things around the data capture based on what we see in our meeting recordings. We've embedded conversation intelligence. And from conversation intelligence, we automatically derive signals, and those signals get to work populating the CRM data. It also gives us inputs into coaching, right? And so now we can take the coaching from a couple of different angles. Because we built in the value-based selling framework, MedPick, 3 Ys, BAND, like all these other sales process frameworks. So all those frameworks have leadership coaching that go along with them. So again, for 20 years, for startups, I built go-to-market teams, selling teams. Every time we'd bring in, every quarter, where you bring in new leaders, you refresh your existing leaders, you go off for a few days, you have your normal QBRs, you keep your leaders behind, and you train them on the best, the most optimized approach to coaching opportunities. If you're doing it right, you're also training them how to coach skills. But let's focus on the deals for a second. We've taken that exact content that I used to use as an operator and was taught to me, and the industry is industry standard for opportunity coaching. And for every part of that sales framework, it has definitions of what good looks like. And it also has a definition of what bad looks like, or gaps. So we've built AI logic to see that, to see those with those definitions and to recognize those patterns. And when it recognizes a pattern of gaps, it has the corresponding coaching content already built into the logic. So it, right in our system, it will present a quality execution score and a quantity execution score. So it says, so the reps immediately sees, hey, against the sales framework, let's pick on MedPick for a second. Maybe MedPick, a lot of people use it, or Medic. Against that sales framework, here are all the things they're supposed to be doing. And then it gives them a score. You have, like, you're interacting with, X% maybe you've gathered like 80% of the metrics that we were expecting you to gather, but you have a 45% quality score. And the rep hovers on it and says, well, what's the 45% about? And then we'll surface the details behind, for example, like maybe you need to get second level discovery and connect business impact on these 2 value drivers. And then when they click on that coaching, it unfolds an exact playbook of how to close the gap on the second level discovery, what questions to use specific to those value drivers per customer of ours, and then how to connect the business logic, go discover frequency, connect impact, connect who cares. And so just like your best coach would sit next to that rep in that moment and say, hey, you did a great job on these 2 things, but consider this. Let me teach you how to get to the impact and really get into that next level, which is where most reps fall down, by the way. But this is one example. So that coaching is exposed. We tell them what's missing and how to close that gap. And then because we're already gathering all the conversation intelligence and recording the meetings and surfacing the signals, then we can pull in examples of what good looks like. Now they know what the gap is, they know how to close the gap, and they can see an example of what good looks like play out right in front of them by clicking the meeting button, close the entire coaching loop. Enablement teams can also record content with our system and then pop that into the coaching cycle as well. The second category of coaching that we're building is what I would refer to as skills coaching. And that's when you start to really get to have a personalized view of the execution of your business. And that means that we're looking at the body of everything that's being executed, and we can constantly surface patterns that lead to the best outcomes. So there's the prescribed, predictable framework coaching that we built into our AI logic, and then there's the continuous learning where we're optimizing and pushing patterns up in front of the rep to help them execute the path that is proven for their particular business to lead to the best outcomes. And then there's the individual skill coaching, in the sense that part of that is watching every individualized conversion that exists for every part of the execution of the sales process, and then mapping deviation in conversion into a 360-degree view back. And so you can sit down, like your earlier example, and say, hey, you're doing a great job at pipeline gen, and you're filling the top of the funnel, you're best in class. But if you take a look at scoping of your pilot and your POVs, et cetera, you have a fall off rate here relative to what we see as best in class of X%. And then we'll automatically model the impact of that delta and show the rep, this deviation is costing you about X amount of money per year. But what if, as a leader, then I have that information, I have those insights, it's packaged in a way that it shows the rep the impact that's personal, and that unlocks their why they want to get better at it. And then the manager has also the insights in how to coach them to get better at that specific skill. Mm-hmm. And then it models, if we were able to fix this 20% delta on the POV scoping where you drop off because you're best in class in discovery, here's the analysis of the what if model. And it shows them now, I can not only close that 200K gap, I can unlock another 150K gap because I have a great top of funnel. Now I'm going to take advantage of that hard work I put in the top of funnel and increase my execution, that throughput. And now they're making 350 grand more than they were in this front of the conversation. And really, there's so much repetitiveness that occurs in coaching, and a lot of sales leaders get a bad rap for yelling at the scoreboard. And my belief is that most people have great intent. Most people know that sales leaders know if their reps aren't optimized, they make less money too. But what we have to do is take this personalized view and map the gap into skills and deals coaching and equip everybody in that cycle with the information they need to not only identify the gap, but pull them through how to close it and optimize the execution at every part of the sales journey. And that's how we view skills and deals coaching. By the way, it's the offshoot of increasing predictability of your business when everybody starts up leveling the execution.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is because with my example and how you've answered it is, I just think about like a salesperson is performing really well. They're killing it. Quarter on quarter, it's going really well. And then they plateau, and that's happened. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to lots of salespeople. In fact, it's happened recently in our company where we've got a recruiter who's doing really, really well, went on a great streak for a whole year, and then about 4 months of just bad performance. And we're trying to figure out, at the time, we were trying to figure out exactly what was going wrong. And it was hard because, the first thing I did was I sat down and said, is there something going on that I need to know that I can help you with outside of work? But then it's not that. But then why is it? Why all of a sudden you just dropped off the cliff, right? You've been performing so well. Based on what you're saying, the platform's able to analyze and give that rich data to the manager as well as the salesperson and say, look, this is where you went wrong, or maybe this is how you were performing, and this is how you're not performing now. But also using that same data to share it with the bottom 80% of salespeople and say, look, this is what the top 20% of people are doing.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. You get both comparative analysis to yourself as well as your peers on your first degree team, which would be like under your first line manager, as well as the top X% of performers in your role globally.
Yeah. The world is also shifting dramatically. So just talking about your example, right? Even the best are having to re-evaluate how they do their work, no matter what their profession is, sales, engineering, it doesn't matter, right? And how they're going to continue to be the best. And the whole goal of this feature is, of course, to help see what's working and not working. But when you compare with the best, you're also understanding how are the best changing with all the shift that's happening that AI is bringing in, other technologies bringing in. And this basically is a great way for the self-motivated to go figure out how they can keep up with the best and continue to be there.
I think about my first week when I first started in recruitment, and it was a Christmas event, and everyone told me about this one guy who's the top performer in the entire company. We're like a 1,000-person company, and I managed to grab like 5 minutes with him at this dinner event just to ask him what does he do differently. But with this technology today, you're able to capture that. I don't need to sit with that person because they might be in Los Angeles. I'm in New York. I don't know the person.
Exactly.
Guys,
you don't have to buy them drinks anymore.
Exactly. There's something else I want to touch on, right? So let's go back to the beginning, because Aurasell is a great company. You're building something truly amazing in the market, but you have a very unique background. I say unique because there are many competitors out there that maybe are not doing exactly the same thing, but trying to do something quite similar, but without your background. Tell us about your background. First of all, how you two both met, because I think there's a unique story there, and then your time at Harness, because you built an incredible business there. From a sales angle, from a technical angle, you saw the problem. As you said, I think when you and I, when the three of us met a year ago, we were talking about the product, and you showed me all these different features and all these different products that you were spending money on at Harness, and you figured there's a problem there that needs to be solved. But let's go back to the beginning. How did you both meet?
Sure. I've talked a lot.
Sure. Well, Jason and I overlapped for over 5 years at Harness. Jason was the CRO. He took the company from single-digit million ARR to 100 plus. And while we pretty much joined a few months apart, but I was basically focused on the product and engineering side. And my job was to actually help transform that company from a one-product company to becoming a multi-product end-to-end platform. And I obviously, over the years, I learned that Jason really appreciated the fact that we were able to build quickly and build it with such quality and for the most discerning customers. These are all enterprise customers, like, they're valued in tens of billions or even hundreds of billions. Right. Okay. The thing is, I had the exact same impression about Jason, which is I said, great that we're building all these products. But, it's not easy to sell when you have 14 different ways of landing into an account and sometimes different personas. And over the years, we developed this, mutual admiration for each other because we realized, building is hard, selling is equally hard, but how do you put this together? And as we got to know each other better, and, we had this opportunity to come sit together and, brainstorm what we could build next. And what space would that be? And, you can see what we are doing today. So clearly we landed on a very, very strong hypothesis based on the problems that Jason was had been looking into all these years, which is like using the sales tools and the go-to-market tool set, how archaic it was, and how he had to like battle through putting these stacks together, be a CIO in addition to being a CRO, and there was a great opportunity for us to leverage AI and come in and really solve people's problems and elevate their experience to go into the next generation.
I'll add, by the way, that anybody that's been in the trenches building a company knows that you can have a lot of velocity from the outside, but often you run into challenging situations. Yeah. And I think it's an incredible journey. I enjoy the build, and I think anybody that does this for a living has to. Srinivas does as well. But also, the tensions can flare in those moments. And I'll just add that, while we worked together for 5 years, we went from 1 to over 100 million in those 5 years. We went from 1 product to 14 products in those 5 years. We were running at hyper velocity. Tensions will flare. And we never had a single fight. Like we never, we were able to always...
Perfect marriage.
We had this mutual respect for each other, and it allowed us to always stay focused on what do we need to do next? What's the path forward? How do we serve the customers? How do we serve the market, the teams? And, just that was important, I think, for each of us as we thought about going on this journey together as founders. I think it's important that that you have to innovate with velocity. You have to execute the rest of the building of the company with velocity. You have to maniacally focus on serving your customers. You can do all that, by the way, in highly tense situations with incredible velocity, but not be frantic about it. Sure. If you have a mutual respect and a mutual trust for each other, and alignment, So I think that's another thing that we were able to get quickly and earn over the 5 years of working together and immediately apply it, of course, in context of starting Aurasell.
Yeah. You also need the right team for the right job. And especially for the problem we are solving, I can go on a limb and say that as an engineering leader, sure, can I understand what people are doing? But it would never be to the level of depth that someone like Jason can bring in with years of experience and also having seen the industry transform and seeing where they're lacking. Vice versa. I mean, I'm sure Jason can hire a team to go do this. But the point is, when we appreciate each other's strength, we know that he's very good at what he does. We know that he understands this problem space extremely well, and he knows that I can execute. And we had to put this team together in order for us to truly do a better job for everyone else we're serving, which is our customers. And that's why we think it's you have to be humble in these things, and you should always not have the ego of being able to do everything, but be honestly look for the right partners in building this.
It's interesting because I think this is a very unique partnership. I can only imagine your time at Harness, your team are talking to customers and something is missing, some feature is missing, and you go back to Srinivas, we need to build this. Yeah. And it gets built, and the velocity and the speed of doing that. And just for the audience, I mean, you were both at Harness. You said one or two products all the way to 13, 14 products and single digit revenue to 100 million revenue plus. What was that defining moment when you just thought, there's something here that needs to be built? This is really frustrating. I know as a user myself, I get really annoyed when I see all the different things that we're paying for.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is when you have, and I'm sure you know this in the sales side, a product that the sales team aren't using. It's just sitting there, it's just dusting away, or it gets used 10% of the time.
Yeah.
But what was that moment when you thought, this is, we need to build this? And how did that conversation happen between the both of you?
Yeah. So I was acutely aware of the problem and the productivity impact of the problem, but initially thought that it might take a different approach to solving it. And I had for years had thought that I wanted to be an investor. Right. And I kind of always admired the VCs and their board roles and and the intellectual breadth of startups that they were able to focus on. And I thought, man, that'd be the best job in the world. They all look happy and well rested and in shape, at least for the most part. And I love you, all my VC friends out there. Yeah. And I thought, this is what I'm going to go do. And so I tried it, actually. Turns out it's harder than you think. But so left Harness, and shortly after I left Harness first, and shortly after I left Harness, Srinivas and I did actually have that conversation around going on and starting something and utilizing AI as this incredibly disruptive platform shift to unlock immense amount of value and disrupt a legacy market. And we thought, wow, this is a moment. This is a great moment to build. But we didn't land initially on what we wanted to build. Yes. Yeah. And so we set this criteria for ourselves, and we said, okay, all those things are true, but it's not like you can't build a company for the sake of building a company. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess you could, but yeah, you need to have the passion and the fortitude to stick it out, and the commitment to solving that problem in a way that it's going to carry you with high energy for years and years and years and years, maybe decades. And so we did align on the fact that we have to meet certain criteria, and that criteria was, it had to be a big market. We had to clearly see the path to utilizing an AI native approach to bringing unique and defensible value in a way that legacy competitors could not. Sure. And we needed to have an awareness of the problem and a level of depth that we thought that we had a point of view that was unique, that we could take the AI native architecture approach and build that point of view into it. Mm-hmm. And we kicked around a couple of different markets, a couple of different problems, and just never really aligned on it. So I went off on the other path, which was to be a VC. Mm-hmm. And I had worked with Next 47. They were led around in a former company I was at. They were on a board. And so I took a venture partner job there for 6 months to try it out and see if I liked it. They were gracious and flexible enough to welcome me into the office and hang out with them. And I thought that along the way, as part of the AI sector team, the AI investment team, that would be in one of these pitches, and I would align with see a unique opportunity with a founder to go solve this problem. And most of the go-to-market AI pitches that over that period of time that I would see they were niche based. It was very small in focus. It was like taking AI and applying it through an LLM interface, like a chat interface ish experience. It would be taking AI and building a what I would call a widget, like a narrow focused agent or something. And I still held this belief that this problem I had experienced at not only Harness but also other startups as you're building the go-to-market tooling and infrastructure to support your teams, and it's just it's wildly out of control. It's out of date. It's too costly. All these things we talked about, and I thought, man, no one is brave enough to take on the legacy, the legacy giants, sure, and do it the right way. And then we reconvened and revisited that conversation around this problem. And that's actually why I explained to you earlier that we documented took the first person's approach, principles approach, and documented, the personas and the activities and the workload and the workflows. That was our mechanism for writing it down. Actually, was a Google Keep notepad. It wasn't fancy. We jotted down a Google Keep file I still have, and then we started backing into like the size of that market.
Do you still have that?
Yeah.
Should frame it.
Yeah, I should. Yes. And then we backed into this, like, how do people do this today? What's the size of the TAM? You know, what's the market cap that created by these like sort of 15 products and the dinosaurs around it? And we thought, man, this is an incredibly fundable platform. And we did decide at that point to build it as a platform, not a wedge. So we convened on that. We aligned on it. We said, yeah, let's go do it. I proceeded, and a couple days later to tell the VC firm that I wasn't going to convert at the end of the 6 months. Yeah. And the next morning they called and asked what I was going to do. And
did they invest?
Yeah. So they called me at like 6:45 or 7 in the morning. I was out. I was moving my daughter out of her college in San Diego, and I got a call from the gentleman that runs the firm, and he said, "What are you going to go do?" And I told him the idea, and he said, "Do you have a co-founder in mind?" I said, "Absolutely, I do." And told him about Srinivas, and we looked his profile up, and I just over the phone just described to him the way we were thinking about the problem, the way we're thinking about bringing value to it and solving it and building the platform. And yeah, you know, we had a couple of different calls that day, and he asked what we were looking to do. I said, "I think we're going to raise $25 million," and he said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do it." And I said, "All right, well, I assume you want to take a lead position. How much do you want to put in?" He said, "We'll take the whole $25 million." And then
on that call,
on that call, it was a couple hours later, and then by 6:30 that night, so 11 hours had passed from the first call now to the one I'm about to tell you about. 6:30 at that night. Again, in a hotel room, getting ready to go to dinner with my daughter. We had moved all our stuff out and put it in a storage unit. Some glamorous like fundraising story, and you know, so he said, "Okay, I'm going to convene a quick meeting with the other GPs," and so I hopped on a Zoom and had the conversation. Showed my Google Keep file, and they voted right then and there and said, "Okay, we're in." So that was our handshake on doing the deal, and proceeded there. Funny side note, by the way. Funny side note. So I've had this mild obsession with taking my family to see the Northern Lights.
Right.
And we're from Ohio. My family was in Ohio, and I was in San Diego, as I just told you. And that night was the first night that the Northern Lights had ever been visible from Ohio, as far south as Ohio, and at least in my lifetime. And the exact moment that I was getting the confirmation from the investors, my wife was sending me pictures of the Northern Lights being visible from our house in Ohio. And I thought that was it was a crazy universe alignment moment. And by the way, that's how. If you look at our color schemes of our product and our branding
and our logo,
and the logo, which is a crown, it's like the Northern Lights dancing.
I like it. I was going to ask.
Yeah. Yes. And even the name, Aurasell is like positive aura, kind of is a nod to that, Aurora Borealis. Anyway, so to wrap that story up, then Srinivas officially left Harness. And
where were you when this call came in from Jason about the funding?
We had been talking for a few days before that, that we were going to be at that moment. You mean physically where I was?
Yes, okay. And like you got the phone call, because this is a pretty big deal. I mean,
I actually, I was at my house, surprisingly. So, but nothing as eventful as, moving, his daughter out of college. Sure. Right. But I was at my house, and we had a pretty, cool conversation. So, yeah.
Because you also had Menlo and Unusual get in.
Yeah, the way that happened was, we were happy with the 25 million, and we were going to go raise a bigger seed round than that. But when Srinivas made it known to the Harness board that he was leaving, both Unusual Ventures and Menlo Ventures are investors in Harness, and of course through that interaction, we've become close to them, or at least very familiar with them over the years of building Harness, and so when they realized that we were going to go do this together, they asked to participate, and so we actually ended up with ended up being sort of
oversubscribed,
further into the fundraising process that we anticipated, and being way oversubscribed. We kind of walked it back down and took just under $30 million in the seed round. But we're happy to have all three of them along for the journey.
Yes.
They're great partners.
Yes.
Next 47, Menlo, and Unusual have been great partners all the way around. So it's been good.
It's been 15 months, something like that, 15, 16 months.
We opened the office in August 2nd of last year.
Yeah.
So it's been since the day we showed up and really with our first engineer and started putting furniture together. It's been about 13 months, a little over 13 months.
Srinivas, from the technical side, what have been the biggest challenges? Because you guys make it seem so easy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
what are the biggest challenges you face on technically?
Yeah. So there's many aspects to it. One is, of course, you're building such a broad platform, and you have to make sure you cannot really make big mistakes. That's what I call fatal flaws, right? If you have fatal flaws, it really makes you revisit the whole thing. So we had to get that part right. So like I was mentioning earlier, the first 4 months we were really focused on the first principles thinking and putting those building blocks. And we went back and forth on quite a few decisions. Should we go SQL, no SQL? Okay, that's a big debate even to this date, right? Things like that. How would we build our lake house? How would our workflow engine look like? Right? How would our agent builder look like? So we had to really
took your time.
Yeah, took our time in putting that together. But I think the key thing there is all the experience that I have and my team has came to our help, because we knew that by rushing that part, we'll actually slow ourselves down the lane. But by taking the right amount of time, of course, hustling to put it together quickly after that, we really accelerated that. Having said that, the new challenge building in the AI era and building platforms is really how much context you need to have in your head at any point in time. We are literally doing the work of almost 10 plus unicorns here in this one company, right? And when you're doing that, there's a lot of functionality, a lot of personas, a lot of use cases you have to think of. And you're thinking, how do I build each one to be extremely high quality? And how do you contextualize all that in your head? And remember, each of our teams is like 2 to 4 people. And each of these teams is excellent in what they build. So how do you work with all these teams? How do each of these teams excel in what they're doing? How do we be the absolute number one? Not a number 2, not a good enough product in each one. So I think that big context window is the new skill people need to develop. And I feel like I've definitely learned a lot. And that's the thing and I'm sure Jason is doing the same, which is we have learned how to keep this enormous amount of context in our head and be able to work across that. Yeah. That is the absolute new gold standard in terms of skills.
Yeah. And one of the, Srinivas referenced teams of 2 to 3 or 4 people. Yeah. One of the things we do is, you're consolidating 15 products, but that also means we only have to build one set of platform services, not 15.
That's right.
We don't have to waste engineering bandwidth on synchronizing with somebody else's database. Yeah. Everything's on a common data architecture, a common AI logic architecture, a common automation workflow architecture. And so we have a platform services team that we built up and built the platform services. Now you can take major capabilities that ultimately map to companies that we displace, and put small teams on building core features, core capabilities, and let them move really fast, but leveraging the underpinning platform. Yeah.
And you guys are based here in the Valley?
Yes, we are based in, our headquarters is in San Mateo, downtown San Mateo. Equidistant from the city, from South Bay, East Bay, really helps our employees come into work without much friction. And I think we really enjoy being there. Yeah.
And we also have an office in India.
In Bangalore,
yeah.
Yes.
And so we maximize the opportunity to work, with a global team.
Yeah. Based in office, no remote.
We are primarily in office.
Yeah.
Yes, as a culture.
How do you feel about fully remote?
Look, I think people are less productive. Generally speaking, there's some functions in the company that could survive and thrive fully remote. I mean, field sales people, enterprise sellers, often are remote and have been for years. That's not a post COVID thing. It's the way it is. The supporting functions associated with those sales teams are often also remote, and that's fine. You put those customer facing resources near the customers they sell to and serve, and that makes a lot of sense. But many of the other functions of the business, I just don't think you move at the same velocity. It's harder to keep people on the same page when you're moving at such a fast pace, and when everything's a scheduled conversation on a Zoom, and Zoom fatigue weighs in, you retain less. That means you're less effective. Everybody you're interacting with remotely is less effective. There's a level of camaraderie that obviously is built as we interact together as humans, and have shared experiences both in the office and out that end up contributing to the fabric and culture of the company. And often I think in the challenging times, you can lean on that culture. You can lean on that shared connection to push through those hard times. And I think it like that energy comes back around and gives back, to you give it back to each other. And that's all part of the recipe for moving at this kind of velocity while not sacrificing quality. So I think we prefer it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, COVID was a black swan event, right? It's a once in a generation event. And I think as a human race, we did a great job working through it, right? And one of them meant we had to work remotely, and we adjusted. And I think, some would even claim we thrived through that period, which is great. Yeah. But the reality is we are social beings. Okay. When we work together, we are always more innovative and more productive in the long term. Yeah. And that is fundamentally cannot be denied. And especially when you're building an innovative product like what we are doing, and with the context like I was talking about that you need to have and the way you need to interact, you need to be working with other people in person. When you're remote, you're taking calls only when you need them, not the serendipity of you meeting each other and being able to have those conversations at the water cooler, in the hallway.
That's right.
Those are the great moments that actually define great pieces of functionality that eventually lands in customers' hands. And so I think we want that serendipity to happen all the time.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we absolutely thrived during that period because we had to. But I feel like, to both your points, the velocity, the speed, the energy that is built in an office, in the office you have in India and the one you have here in the States, is you can't capture that being remote. I mean, I remember back during the pandemic, if I had to speak to someone in the team, I'd have to send a Slack message, do you have 5 minutes? And they might not respond for half an hour. By the time they get back to me, the point I wanted to mention, I probably forgot it. So I had to start writing down, speak to this person about this. So I think there's an element of, as you said, collaboration, velocity, speed. If I think about your time at Harness, I'm sure when you were speaking to a customer and there was a feature missing, that ability just to grab Srinivas, have a conversation and make things happen quicker. Sure. For me, I'm anti-remote for those reasons. Not because you don't trust the team. That's, of course you trust the team, but it's the what you miss from being together.
Sure,
that's exactly. Yeah.
By the way, you brought the feature request example up a couple of times. We automatically capture that as a signal in Aurasell,
right?
And from the conversation, be it in a Zoom meeting, on a meeting that we've recorded in Conversation Intelligence, or you could interact with our solution via voice. Every voice interaction is treated like a transcript, like a Conversation Intelligence, bounced off the same AI layer of logic, which then will turn that conversation into a signal. So a feature request ends up being an automated signal that we then not only update the CRM on, but we'll auto route that task. that gets created to a PM to act on it. And like, so that's an example of automation,
Right.
yeah, that occurs without the rep doing anything. It just happens.
So without the account manager or the customer success
Yeah.
manager having to speak to the customer and they say, hey, you know what, I like if it did this or did that. It just picks it up and
picks it up
right.
as a signal, yeah, and automates the actions around it.
When we think about building a company, and you both have built successful organizations, both on the sales side and the engineering side at Harness and prior companies as well. When you think about Aurasell, there's another big piece to building a company. In fact, probably the biggest challenge for any organization, and it's people. Hiring the right talent, motivating the right people. How big was the org that you had at Harness in terms of the engineering side?
Our entire engineering team was 500 plus people. So it was a big organization which grew organically over the years. I mean, so there were some acquisitions which also contributed to the growth. But yeah, we were around 500 people in the organization.
But is it also challenges when in fact, if anything, I think that's even more challenging to acquire a business and having to integrate that entire team and culture into.
Sure, it is. So we had to absolutely we had to have very strong ground rules on how we would work with acquisitions, not necessarily just for the people. Like, what were the outcomes for the business? You always start there, because once you define those outcomes, then it's very easy to rally people towards those outcomes, and which are mutually beneficial to them, to the company, to their peers, to the customers that we are serving, everybody. So in this case, one of the golden rules we had working with our mentor and CEO there, was that we had to integrate. We had a strict timeline that we had to integrate any incoming acquisition in the first 6 months of them being there, and that was a line in the sand, and we had to figure out how to make that happen. So when this company came in, you were instantly, the employees from the incoming company and the employees from Harness, everybody is aligned to making that happen. And we work together towards a plan. We break everything down into consumable chunks, and we figured out what resourcing was needed to deliver those outcomes. And we actually never failed on that through the 6 or 7 acquisitions I was part of when I was at Harness.
One of the key elements of that is making sure that the people are aligned not only in the expectation and the objective, but the goal structure.
Yes.
So that neither side of the participants in that equation could succeed when the other one failed. So there were KPIs that were placed on all of us cross-functionally at an executive level to execute that way.
Were there any failed acquisitions, not from failure from the business that's been acquired in terms of the customer's revenue and the IP, but the integration piece of the people coming together?
In Harness, no. I think we have a 100% record of integrating product and people into the organization. Yeah.
How is that possible?
I think, again, this comes back to the framework that we put in place. And honestly, I think when you, also the due diligence you do before, right? You have to understand that you already know the outcome you're trying to achieve before you acquire a company. And you already know what needs to be delivered. And when you know this, you look at the team that's incoming and then say, can this team work with the team here to deliver that outcome? If it didn't happen, and if the question is, have we bailed out on acquisitions because we didn't think that would happen? 100%, we have done that. So it's a little bit of a survivor bias thing here, right? Which is, there's lots of acquisitions that probably did not happen because we did not think we would be able to achieve that outcome. But the ones we did, we had a 100% hit rate on it.
I also think that the team did a great job on targeting acquisitions that were complementary to the product roadmap.
Right.
Which helps from a success ratio perspective.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, because I worked with, and I still do work with Harness, and I remember a number of times through a number of positions that we were filling, acquisitions were happening, so positions were getting on hold, and then we find out some changes have been made. So you're saying, Srinivas, that some acquisitions simply did not happen, whilst the opportunity looked great from a revenue standpoint and the IP and everything else, just the integration wasn't going to be smooth.
That is absolutely correct. And there's all aspects of understanding this, which is from the leadership to the employee pool to the product capabilities, right? The technologies that were being used, to whether that was truly complementary or whether that was encroaching on what we were building and therefore would need major retrofit, right? We looked at all of this when we were making those decisions. And yes, some we bailed out early. Some I would say we went pretty far and then realized these are not great acquisitions. But I think overall, the filtering criteria worked extremely well.
I get a exciting energy sitting here with both of you, and it's because I feel like you've come from a very successful background. You've identified a big problem to go after. Everyone's talking about specializing and creating little products for one particular area. You thought, well, we're solving for one market. Let's bring it all together. And the VCs, the investors you have behind you, the experience you both have behind you, I get this huge sense of you're not building for something small. Whilst the TAM might be big, you also want to build something quite big as a company. What is the vision for Aurasell?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the TAM is massive. By 2030, the TAM associated with the collective go-to-market tool space that we cover with our current product and the next two products we're going to build soon, that's a $236 billion TAM. And having a $236 billion TAM is exciting. It provides a great opportunity. What we're focused on building, though, is the next definition of what great looks like for a go-to-market platform. And that's quite literally how we think about it. We don't think about it through the lens of slices of pooling or subsets of that TAM. We don't even think about it as like even owning X% of that TAM. We think about it as building quite literally just the definition that everybody else defines great by for the next AI native next generation go-to-market platform. And our belief is that if we do that and we're focused on our customers, not our competition, maniacally every day, that we will build a platform that people love, that unlocks a tremendous amount of value, that's transformative for their business. And in that way, it will become very sticky in the heart of running their business. And if we do all those things and we do it well and we build a great culture, we'll build a great company that's freestanding and long lasting and has the potential to be a public juggernaut. But I think that's a byproduct of everything else that we're first focused on. I think if you build my personal opinion is, and I think I'm sure Srinivas shares it, we've talked about it. If you chase a market for the sake of the market and you don't truly understand the problem or have passion for solving it, if you decide you think building a company is glamorous and you want to go do that work, they're likely to burn out on some front. That doesn't mean you won't have an outcome. Sure. Maybe the company gets built and you find pivots and it becomes valuable and you sell it to somebody and the acquisition yields liquidity for that. Those are great they're fine outcomes. There's nothing wrong with those outcomes. But this is the way we think about it. And if we first stay focused on that, the execution, the opportunity will sort of fill itself in because the market's so massive. And we believe there's so much pain in the existing landscape of tools in that market, and people are thirsty for a better solution, and we want to build it and give it to them. And I think the second part of this is, look, we need a very small percentage of this market to. If you think about this, the $236 billion, that's the projected spend on this platform landscape. If you take just the top 5 legacy CRMs and for a second even forget about all the other market cap we're talking about or all the other TAM we're talking about, if you look at the market cap for those 5, it's about $500 billion. you know, at a very small ASP, we need like far less than 1% of this market to have $1 billion in revenue. And so we don't need to convince 95% of the market that this is the right way to go. We can build a massive, long-standing business that delivers a great product, and by market cap or enterprise value creation terms is wildly successful, and also only capture a small percentage of the market. And that we believe that to be true, which is why we don't focus on it. That gives us the freedom to focus on with purity on execution of building a great platform.
Look, we are really passionate about serving for this user base, which is, go-to-market, folks working in the go-to-market function, right? Now, if you look, all of us, if you look in our day-to-day lives, we get to use incredible products. Self-driving cars, you're taking rides in self-driving cars, you have VR headsets, beautiful devices in our hands, and then you go to work, you have to use this 25-year-old database to do your day-to-day function. It's honestly a disservice. So we are very passionate about making sure we move our set of users to the future and build for the next generation. And if the byproduct of this is if this is a huge company, so be it. That's what it's going to be, right? But our goal is just that. We want to build a great product. We want to make sure our users get the same experience at work that they have in their day-to-day lives outside of work.
I love the passion, but also I like what you said about redefining what great looks like. Because it sounds huge, but to your point, Srinivas, just yesterday, and this happened literally just yesterday, I was recording another podcast and I come out of the studio and my head of people's messaged me on Slack saying our CRM's down. We keep getting logged out. And it's a very specific CRM to what we do as a business, but it's average. It doesn't have anything about it that is as advanced as where the technology is today. We talked about velocity and speed and how quickly you can build. It makes me think these legacy companies that have been around for 20 plus years, why can't they be fast? Why can't they build quickly? You talk about the feature piece and how you can capture it. Why isn't it the Salesforce of the world aren't thinking about solving this problem?
Yeah, I think. By the way, it sounds like we need to build the recruiting workflows. For
I already said this. To Srinivas.
Yeah,
we did add. Yeah. It is on our extended roadmap. Yes. By the way, I think I want you to answer this. I'm going to give it a high level though, if you don't mind.
For sure.
Look, I think I'm going to take a run at this, but not get too much into the technical weeds here. It's a great question. Yeah. It's an obvious question, by the way. They have like endless amounts of capital, insane amount of resourcing, and I think that everybody can agree that there's not a lot of argument about AI's opportunity for impact here in the future. So it is a great question. Think about it though for a second, right? So these legacy CRM players, the legacy bolt-on bloat products that live in their ecosystem, they're built on an architecture that was designed for the beginning of the cloud era. It certainly didn't contemplate AI. How could it? It wasn't a thing then, right? And they have a very large task in front of them. Right? They have to, if they really want to build an AI native offering, not sprinkle in, AI pixie dust on top of a 20-year-old legacy framework, then it will require lift and shift. And I think anybody that's been in the technology industry for any amount of time, or even a customer that's used technology for any amount of time, can agree that lift and shift is a disruptive approach to change. Right. And imagine that you're one of these big legacy providers and you have, 150,000 customers on your platform. And those 150,000 customers drive tens and tens and tens of millions of users every day. And now you have to take that whole body of users and that whole mountain of data and all the customization that you let people build for 2 decades. By the way, in proprietary languages, often.
And some very legacy languages.
Scripting that's not relevant anymore. And you have to lift and shift that architecture, technically. You have to somehow move into modern architecture, not only for AI and the data structure, you have to do it for like workflows and many other things. Like our workflow has AI natively built inside of the workflow engine. Everything is AI native. So you have to move that whole technology architecture over. You have to do it with tens and tens of millions of users on top of it, mountains of the world's data, and then you have to do all that without disruption. And somehow you have to convince, we've talked to a lot of these competitive customers, and they're being charged, they're being quoted millions of dollars of services fees to do this. And candidly, my viewpoint on this is if you're a legacy provider and you deem it necessary for your future to lift and shift an architecture, it's not right to place the burden and the cost associated with that on your user base. And so I just think there's logical reasons, there's technical reasons, there's commercial reasons. They're publicly traded companies. They're under pressure to continue to grow every quarter while they're doing this, which is why they're doing silly things like charging customers for every AI interaction that automates an update to their database. Like these things are not customer-friendly decisions. No. And so, could they do it? I'm going to assume technically that they could.
Yeah.
I think it's more the drag that comes along with it and commercial pressure that gets in the way. And I think at some point, users should decide that they're just not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
And we want to give them an alternative.
Yeah. And when users are presented with the sort of fork to re-platform, whether it be with the same company, right? At that point, you're already coming to the path where they have to decide what is the right choice for the future, not where they have been, right? Everybody makes these choices. And to be honest, it is incredibly hard. Kudos to some of these companies. They've done really, really well over the last 25 years. But the bottom line is they have built a mountain of debt. They have built this legacy, which was a good problem for the most part. But when you cannot look around the corners and find new tech coming and disrupting you, like AI is that right now today, right? And when you didn't build for that upfront, you are at an incredible disadvantage as a big company. Yeah. And this is the story of Silicon Valley, right? Yes, people build successful businesses, but not everybody looks around the corners. And when you don't, you are basically ripe for disruption. And we feel like there's an incredible opportunity here. We are building for the future again. And we want to take those users and give them the experience they deserve.
There's a few things I want to unpack really quickly about this topic, because I think it's really important. We talk about PMF and how you never really arrive there. You have to keep rebuilding yourself. Right. I feel like it just reminds me of the Netflix Blockbuster story. Blockbuster wasn't willing to lift and shift and break itself, whereas Netflix didn't take the acquisition and decided to give up the rental business and go streaming. Yes. But I also think about going back to your experience at Harness with the acquisitions. And I don't know if you thought about this, but as you were describing it, I kind of thought to myself, you're building all these different tools, effectively, and features to one big platform. And there's going to be an opportunity here to acquire businesses that perhaps are going to be displaced. Yeah. And you do come with the experience of doing that successfully. Sure. And I don't know if you've thought about that, but as you were talking, I was just thinking to myself, you've got all these features that you're building, and there are a number of companies out there. Without mentioning any names, have you thought about the speed of how you want to grow? Because I think about what you've achieved in 13 months. I'm just thinking AI is moving really fast. is there an opportunity where you're thinking about the pace of Aurasell and how quickly you want to get to a big, or truly big company?
I think we should divide this question into a couple of parts, right? First is, I think, we mentioned our product has the capability of something equivalent to the equivalent of 15 different companies, right? But honestly, that made sense 20 years ago. If you look today, that I think is the minimum bar for building a product. We don't view them as 15 different companies. To us, that is the bar at which you need to be building a product. In fact, once you look and use our product, people consistently tell us that, hey, we don't understand how this was 15 different things to begin with. Okay, so what we did is we raised the bar for what is an acquisition target and what is our ecosystem. Are we going to have ecosystem and are we going to acquire companies? Absolutely. But what is that future going to look like? I think we are actually defining the new base layer for building this functionality. And in the next couple of years, we'll see companies building on top of us. We'll see companies supplementing us. And absolutely, those are all companies we will look at and see what's a good target for us to acquire. And we know the playbook.
I had Scott Dietz on the show once, and he said every startup aspires to be a legacy company.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting world that we live in, Silicon Valley. A lot of innovation happening. And you strike me as pure startup guys, right? That's what you're building for. At some point, this is not going to be a startup anymore. It's going to be a big company. And the other thing that you mentioned earlier on was looking around the corners. Yeah. Keeping your finger on the pulse, realizing that PMF is, honestly, I think it's a complete. It's a. How real is it, right? Do you really ever arrive there? And when you do, how quickly do you need to think about the next big thing? You are building huge. As far as the opportunity and the landscape. But there's also the fact that we are in Silicon Valley and competition is fierce.
Yes.
How do you juggle, as founders, how do you juggle what you're building and the excitement of what you're building with making sure that you maintain that number one spot?
I think that question was sort of answered earlier, which is we obsess over our customers, not over our competition. Okay. And really, sure, we can obsess over being on top of technology. That's what I meant looking around the corners. But we're not really too worried about our competition. We are maniacally focused on our users and what their problems are and what are the tools we can leverage and the tools we can provide to them to solve their problems. And product market fit, yes, it is a shifting target, which is a good thing because you solve the problem. Users use your product. They discover new issues, right? They discover new levels of being efficient. They discover new levels of being productive. All of those things are what you hear from the field. You're listening from everybody else using your product and other people's products, and then you keep shifting based on that. That's something we learn every day. We are listening to people. We are reading. We are we are heavy on research, right? We understand where the world is going, and we will keep shifting according to that.
You both come with a lot of experience, both in building and scaling and identifying a real problem statement and even the acquisition piece. Guys, it really has been a pleasure having you on the show. You both have, and you're the first. This is the first episode we've had two people on the show, so thank you for making it happen. I want to wrap up with one final question for both of you individually.
Sure. Yeah.
So we have a theme on this show, Inside Silicon Mind. It's all about learning and developing and constantly being aware of what's going on in the industry. And some of the information that we gather comes from books, from reading books. I'm personally an avid reader. This is why I've made it a staple for the show. But I want to, maybe you already have thought about this question, but I'm going to ask Srinivas first, because the one I'd like for you to recommend is more around the sales world. With your background, obviously linking that to Aurasell, because it'll probably be a book that I'm going to use personally for my sales team. But Srinivas, for you, when you think about your journey, we have our listeners and our viewers are founders, investors, engineers, future founders, and they would love to learn, constantly learn. Is there a book for you that has truly resonated?
Well, for first, a couple of thoughts on books in general, right? I think you have to always be you. That's very important. And I think I have always kept that in mind, which is when people give you advice, it is advice that has worked in specific context of a specific problem, right? And that makes sense. And, maybe you come across that, you look into that advice, it's perfect, right? So with that preface, I always say, yes, I do go read books. I love you're pointing out books that are great, but you also have to remember they're not gospels, right? You have to basically be able to take the best from them, but also know when to use your own instinct on solving problems. One book I felt as a leader that was really, hit the mark for me was Radical Candor. I think it just transformed the way, I felt about giving feedback to others and how to hold them accountable, and also do it in a way that you personally care for them. That was a really important book for me.
I love that. I absolutely agree with you. I think a few years ago, I called Mike Spicer once for advice, and he said to me, when I give advice, when he gives advice to any of his founders, whatever the outcome is, it's theirs. Yes. If the advice is great, well done to them. If it's bad, it's their fault, right? So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's great reading all these books, but you've got to have your own personality and your own individual thoughts about things. Jason?
Yeah, great. By the way, I consume a lot of information via podcast these days, so
we'll make this one
maybe
your
this
favorite
medium will serve somebody well, hopefully. But as far as books go, I'll give you a couple. Not sales related, but I think it's a book that has been transformative for me in my career as well as in my personal life. And one of my early in career sales leaders basically asked me, or almost demanded, that I read it. And that was, and it's a Stephen Covey forward. It's called Crucial Conversations for When the Stakes Are High. The key takeaway here that we've even built into one of our culture beacons at the company, we want to build the company culture, is the key takeaway is mutually beneficial outcomes. And conflict can be constructive. Conflict is good. Conflict is necessary if you're going to do hard things, especially hard things at high velocity. But conflict at work can never be taken or targeted in a personal way. Then that's how it becomes deconstructive, right? And we want people to feel comfortable leaning into conflict. We ourselves feel comfortable between the two of us leaning into conflict. But we always do it with the anchor of a mutually beneficial outcome in mind. And so, if you can identify moments where emotions are heightened and reset that conversation, or even your mindset, if you don't do it out loud, but reset that conversation to focus on an outcome that is mutually beneficially shared, then you have the framework for conflict resolution. And that gives you the tools to do really hard things efficiently. So it's one of those books that I've always had my sales leaders read. It's something in other companies, other startups, we had pulled into our culture in the way of workshops. Actually, so I'm married twice. Divorced, remarried. My second wife and I read the book together before we got married. So, I think you can apply it all the way around. Yeah. But if you want to talk about sales books, I think John McMahon did a nice job on The Qualified Sales Leader. I think some of those practices, in particular for B2B sellers and sales leaders, are the standard and can be timeless when applied in context of a modern go-to-market architecture. So some things transfer, but you have to keep in mind the contextual application of your go-to-market framework, your segmentation, the balance between high velocity, maybe even PLG versus sales led, and within sales led, like how much of it, where's your velocity, and friction trade-off versus deep sort of process execution focus. So a lot of great things to take away from there from both for both sellers and leaders. Just keep in mind, to Srinivas' point, to apply those lessons in context of your situation.
I love the two books that you've recommended because I feel like they are connected in many ways. I've read both, and there's an element of, it's not about tech, it's not about sales or business, it's more about how you actually deal with people.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly correct.
And the conflict's going to happen. And on the personal side, I've only been married once, but getting to where we were at the beginning of the relationship to where we are now has taken a lot of hard work, but the fundamentals came down to communication. Really has been. So I understand where you're coming from. Guys, it really has been a pleasure having you both on. I wish you all the success. It has been great working with both of you as your recruiting partner. Hopefully we'll continue doing the same. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We enjoyed it.
You, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Samana Labs and powered by Harrison Clark. At Harrison Clark, we're at the heart of Silicon Valley's evolution and at the intersection of search and venture, funding the companies shaping the future and connecting them to the most elite cloud, data, and AI talent. To learn more, visit harrisonclark.com. If today's episode challenged your thinking, then share it with someone who's driving innovation. For even more insights on achieving product market fit, subscribe to our newsletter, the PMF Playbook, where we break down the journey from zero to product market fit. Visit thepmfplaybook.com. For more episodes, follow us on social media or visit InsideTheSiliconMind.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay consistent, and stay inside the Silicon Mind. See you soon.